I want to swing over to Jason Unruhe, joining us out of Ontario, political commentator. Hello, Jason. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Jason, now my question to you as a political commentator, how do you see Washington's role in what we're about to see? We've seen this historic meeting between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in, South Korean and North Korean leaders at the time. Now, we very well know what North Korea wants. They want the U.S. to stop these military drills on its southern border. Very provocative. It sees them as, it's one of the reasons it's built its nuclear missile arsenals to be as effective as it is. So my question to you, will the U.S. use its influence to sabotage these talks? Or not, let's say sabotage, but will it make demands that might impose somewhat of a wrench in what can come out, the fruitful product that could come out of North and South Korean talks?
Well, in my opinion, in my experience, the United States will come up with something. They will, as you say, throw a wrench into these discussions. There have been many times in the past where the U.S. has made many demands and made deals with the DPRK and then didn't live up to them themselves, and then turned around and accused the DPRK of being the ones who have violated them. This historic meeting signifies something that the U.S. is not too happy about. This is between the two Koreas. This is the two of them deciding what the future between their two countries is going to be. And the United States is set on a course of just being a bystander in this situation. They're relegated to sitting in the peanut gallery, as it were, and to watch these events unfold, not being able to wield any direct influence over them. And rightfully so. This is an issue that is between the two Koreas. And the United States has wielded so much power over the South Korean government over these past decades, virtually dictating what their relationship to the North is going to be like, at least on the end of South Korea. And this signifies a significant moment where they are not going to have that power to any significant degree. I'm sure there's probably some kind of conversations going on behind closed doors between the South and the United States as to what will be discussed, what they're willing to sacrifice, what they're willing to demand, etc. But to answer your question directly, I think that we can definitely expect the United States to do something. And not just the United States, but the fact that it's the current president, Donald Trump, who seems very erratic in his decision-making. Previously, he referred to Kim Jong-un as Little Rocket Man, and then turned around only a few days ago and called him an honorable man. There's tremendous inconsistency coming from Donald Trump himself. And in this situation, it's hopeful that cooler heads will prevail. But I think the United States has to continue this aggressive stance against the DPRK. While they are the last state, aside from Cuba, that has held out from the Cold War, that has maintained that just a very, very strong anti-imperialist socialist stance, and they have not buckled to U.S. pressure to any significant degree.
Joe, I don't want to cut you off, Jason, but hypothetically, let's say that Kim Jong-un tells Moon Jae-in that I'll break down the nuclear program. I'll put a halt to it. I'll even break it down. If you get Washington to get these 20,000 plus troops off our southern border, and let's say Moon Jae-in, South Korean president, turns over to Donald Trump and makes that request, I mean, how conducive do you think Trump's response will be?
I don't think he'd do it. I don't think the United States would be willing to take those troops out of the country, because of the ongoing aggressions between the United States and the DPRK. The DPRK is insistent upon the DPRK coming to some kind of a collapse, or to be more specific, some kind of regime change, etc. And part of that threat is having 20,000 troops inside the South ready to attack the North at any time. And I don't think that they're going to pull that card away from them. They have to keep that pressure on the DPR. Threat of invasion always being around. That kind of protection is the border, or they claim it's to protect the South from the North. They have to maintain that force there, not only to keep the pressure on the DPRK, but as a matter of not pulling them out of the South. If these troops were to be pulled out of the South now, it would be a virtual nightmare to ever get them back in. The South Korean public would not tolerate it in any way. It's better for them to keep things the way they are than to take one step back if there's a possibility that they're not capable of taking that step forward once again. The military pressure has to remain against the country no matter what. I mean, as the two Koreas want peace between each other, mutually beneficial trade, cultural exchanges, etc., this is not what the United States wants. The United States wants the utter and complete destruction of the current way things are run in the country right now, either from a complete decimation of the country and its leadership, or perhaps replacing the leadership with some kind of puppet government.
And if you're a viewer just joining us, we're in Panmunjom, the demarcation, the demilitarized zone there between North and South Korea. You see that building there. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has just crossed over the line, the first North Korean leader to come into the demilitarized zone. He has met with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. They shook hands. They walked along the red carpet, and they entered that building for a historic summit that they're about to embark upon. And Jason, my question to you, I mean, are you surprised that we're seeing this meeting take place, considering the kind of rhetoric we're listening to just a couple months back?
Frankly, I'm not surprised this is taking place right now, because while there has been a great deal of rhetoric between the United States and the DPRK, things between the South and the North have been much more cordial. I think that the way that the Olympics played out in South Korea was masterfully done by the North. They came in with the olive branch, with participation on their mind, with unification in their spirit. And that was warmly accepted by the South. And a lot of people in both countries were very happy to see that. They wanted to see that kind of cooperation and peaceful stance. Meanwhile, the U.S. was giving the cold shoulder to anyone who dared go along with that. Well, we saw Mike Pence giving the cold shoulder to the entire DPRK delegation. He refused to speak to them. He had only harsh words. And Trump said, the military drills will continue as soon as the Olympics are over. Kim Jong-un has played directly to the leadership of the South to bring the overture of peace between the two countries and left the United States out of it. Traditionally, the image that we get is that the DPRK is some kind of psychotic mass that just wants to fight for no reason. They're just these terrible, evil people. We see very openly that peace between the two countries, while the United States is left off to the side to fume about having been left out of it because they don't want it to happen. What was masterfully done here by Kim Jong-un was make himself appear to be the good guy, who wants the overture of peace, who wants things to be better. And the United States came off looking almost like a jealous spouse, because they weren't able to be a part of it, and they don't want the peace to be there. Although the United States has always said that they wanted peace on the peninsula, they've certainly done nothing to foster that. And in this case, the way things played out, the United States was made to be seen for what it really is, the real force behind much of the aggression on the peninsula. So these talks taking place at this time was wholly appropriate in my mind, to try to broker some kind of a peaceful agreement between the two countries that leaves the United States out in the cold. Because what is the U.S. going to do? Are they going to openly declare their intention to sabotage it? They don't want there to be a peace negotiation so long as the DPRK continues its independence and anti-imperialist stance. It wants that to come to an end. So if the DPRK can keep that and promote a peaceful kind of agreement, or whatever it is that can be reached between the two Koreas, and the United States has no choice to continue its hostile stance, and then people will begin to see the United States for what it really has been doing this whole time. It's been masterfully played, and I'm not surprised that it happened at this time, because I think that they have been building up to it for some time.
And what kind of role do you think China played? Because we know that Xi Jinping was visited by Kim Jong-un not too long ago there in Beijing. And what do you think came out of that meeting, and how much role of a mediator do you think Xi Jinping played leading up to this historic meeting?
Uh, the way I view it, someone who can't see behind closed doors, like just like everybody else, I don't think that he really made that much of a deal. I don't think he really had that much of an impact. I think that when Kim Jong Un visited him, he basically told him the gist of what he was going to do. He was going to push that line of peace. He said, "I am willing to offer a cessation of the nuclear program. I'm willing to stop tests," which is what China wants, which they have to demand as a result of the non-proliferation treaty. And they, with having this together, they told them, "No, Gray, we can strike a deal. We can resolve things peacefully, and we can make the U.S. look like the bad guy in this situation," although they very much are, so to speak, the bad guy in this situation. I believe that more or less they came to them and told them exactly what they were going to do. It said, "Don't worry about it. We've got this. We know how to deal with this situation. We can work towards a de-escalation of nuclear tensions on the peninsula," which is what China wants along with everybody else. China doesn't want to live next door to a country that could possibly take part in a nuclear war if things broke down. So I think Kim Jong-un probably gave him some assurances, gave him an outline of what it was that he was planning to do with the South, and that the main things that China wanted, which was at least a step in the process of denuclearization, that not to worry, because what China wants, they can still give them at the same time, while rebuking the United States for its stance on the peninsula.
Thank you for joining us. Political commentator Jason Unruhe joining us out of Ontario. If you're just joining us, we're witnessing a historic handshake and a meeting about to take place, a summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in.